Good day, I'm Cynthia from Sorry Tutorial Videos, and today we'll be talking about the content of an inguinal hernia sac. Before we talk about the content, let's quickly define what a hernia is, look at the types of hernia and the parts of a hernia sac. A hernia is defined as a protrusion of a part or the whole of a viscous through a defect in the wall of its containing cavity. And this defect could be anatomical or it could be an acquired defect. So for the types of hernia, we have internal hernia and external hernia. Internal hernia are those hernia that are not visible to the human eyes on the external. They occur within the human body. For example, the diaphragmatic hernia that occurs through any of the diaphragmatic orifices. There is also the hernia through the foramen of Winslow within the abdominal cavity. So those are examples of internal hernia. While for external hernia, they are the hernia that are externally visible to the human eyes. Now examples are inguinal hernia, femoral hernia, epigastric hernia, umbilical hernia, paraumbilical hernia, incisional hernia, Spigelian hernia, lumbar hernia, sciatic hernia. Now all of these are named based on the anatomical location where you can find anatomically. For example, the inguinal hernia, they are the hernias that are found in the inguinal region. Now when a viscous herniates, a sac is usually formed by the wall of the cavity which it herniated from, and usually the sac has four parts, namely the mouth of the sac. So it is through the mouth that the hernia enters into this cavity, and then you have the neck of the sac. Now this neck determines whether this hernia is reducible or irreducible. The neck could become tight, or the neck could be loose, or it could become tight with over time. Then there is the body of the hernia, and then the most dependent portion is called the fundus of the hernia sac. Okay, so we have the various content of a hernia and then the name based on the content. Now for an omentocele, the content of an omentocele is omentum. So when you have an omentum within the hernia sac, it's called omentocele. Most times it's the greater omentum. And then when you have the intestine, when you have an intestinal loop within a hernia sac, is called an enterocele. Enterocele, named after the intestine. Enterocele. Now when you have the appendix present within a hernia sac, it could be present alone or alongside a bowel loop. So when you have the appendix present, it's called amiens or litus hernia. Amiens or litus hernia. So a way to remember it is A. The first letter of appendix is A, while the first letter of amiens is A. So appendix, amiens, and then appendix is a little organ, little structure, is a vestigial organ. So and it's little in shape, so you can use that to remember, in size rather, it's little in size. You can use that to remember that when you have the appendix present within a hernia sac, whether alone or alongside the bowel loop, is called amiens or litus hernia. Here's a diagram showing amiens or litus hernia. Here you can see the appendix within the sac. Now when you have Merkel's diverticulum within the hernia sac, it's called Litter's hernia. Litter's hernia. Now here's a diagram here showing Litter's hernia. You may confuse the name with appendix, but remember the appendix is little in size, so it's a Litter's hernia. While for Merkel's diverticulum, it's Litter's hernia. Now here's a diagram showing the Merkel's diverticulum present within the hernia sac. Now when you have the anti-mesenteric border of the circumference of a bowel loop present, is called Richard's hernia. Now you remember that a bowel loop has the mesenteric border where the mesentery attaches to, and the anti-mesenteric border. So the part that is more likely to herniate is the anti-mesenteric border, because there is no mesentery holding on it, unlike the mesenteric border of the bowel loop. So sometimes the whole circumference of the bowel loop may not herniate. It's just a part of it that will herniate. So it means there will still be a craniocaudal flow or bowel content through that bowel loop. And there's a diagram here showing the Richard's hernia. You have these are the bowel loops, and it's just part of it, just a border of it that entered, part of the circumference of this bowel loop that entered the hernia sac. So it means content can still flow in a craniocaudal order. So it means this type of hernia will not undergo obstruction, intestinal obstruction. Intestinal obstruction is when there is an impediment to the craniocaudal flow of bowel content. So there will be no form of obstruction here. But this bowel loop can strangulate because there are blood supplies around here. Strangulation just simply means when the blood supply of an organ is cut off. That's strangulation. So that's for Richter's hernia. Now, when the content of the sac also forms part of the wall of the sac, for example, urinary bladder forming part of the wall of the sac, or a sigmoid colon forming part of the wall of the sac, it's called sliding hernia. Sliding, as the name implies, a part of the content is forming part of the wall, so it's sliding into the wall of the hernia. So here's a diagram here showing it. So you can see the sigmoid colon here, as though it's sliding into this hernia sac. So that's a sliding hernia. So what the importance of knowing if a hernia sac contains either the sigmoid colon or urinary bladder is that in surgery you want to know so that you don't iatrogenically injure the sigmoid colon or the urinary bladder. Now, when you have two loops of bowel within the hernia sac, it's called Meade's hernia or hernia NW. Hernia NW or Meade's hernia. Here is a diagram here showing it, the Meade's hernia. So you can see you have two. This is one loop of bowel. This is one. This is another loop of bowel. So two loops of bowel. So it means this middle portion is the part that is most likely going to strangulate and obstruct. Then when you have a direct and indirect hernia coexisting in the hernia sac, it's called, okay, no, it may not really be in one hernia sac, but you have both direct hernia in one hernia sac and then indirect hernia. It's called pantaloons hernia. So here's the diagram here showing this is a direct hernia most likely, and then this is the indirect hernia coming from the most likely an acquired defect on the posterior portion of the anterior abdominal wall, and this is the hernia that comes from probably a weakness in the deep ring and then passes through the inguinal canal. So you both see them most likely in the inguinal region if it's occurring within the inguinal region. So basically these are the common contents of a hernia sac, and then the names of this hernia. So we said omentocele, where is when you have an omentum present within the hernia sac. Enterocele is when you have the intestine present. Ambians, A for ambian, A for appendix, is when you have the appendix present within the hernia sac. Then you have litterus hernia. It's almost like little. What is the other little structure present within the abdominal cavity that looks like the appendix? Is the mercus diverticulum. So you can use that to remember. Then you have Richter's hernia. It's present. It's the name of a hernia where you have the antimesenteric border of the circumference of a bowel present within the hernia sac. Then you have sliding hernia. The sliding hernia, either the urinary bladder or the sigmoid colon slid into the hernia sac to form part of the wall. So when you have two loops of bowel present, it's called Meade's hernia or hernia NW. And then when you have direct and indirect hernia coexisting, it's called the pantaloon hernia. So thank you very much, and I hope you learned from this short video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel after seeing this video. Thank you.